Kerry Grinkmeyer is the creator of the YouTube channel Best of Us Investors. Kerry Grinkmeyer is a retired financial advisor who sold his business, which was one of the largest in the Ameriprise franchises. Best of Us Investors currently sits at 158,000 subscribers and almost 14 million total channel views. He is an accomplished investor who shares his knowledge with a new video every day at 7 a.m. Central Time. This is a man with decades of experience and a thriving community surrounding his channel. In this episode of the Video Creator Show, I'll talk to him about how he did it and about whatever else comes up. It's going to be a good one. Kerry, how's it going today?
Grant, it's going terrific. I'm enjoying every day of it more because this whole YouTube gig just changes on a daily basis and presents new opportunities.
And so you releasing a video every day, I think is important to your channel's success. And like you're constantly putting new information out there. I guess I'm just curious how you even think of what to put out there. I know that investing in that whole realm, it does tend to be fast paced. So there often is new information, but like, how do you keep your ear to the ground so that you stay relevant in this space?
That's a very interesting question because the reality is, I don't know from one day to the next what I'm going to be talking about. I have a belief that I have a coach, and that coach lives in my head, and he wakes up about 6 o'clock in the morning, and he and I start talking about what's important and what I think my audience might want to hear about today. I wouldn't say I'm a news junkie, but I have a habit of I read the Wall Street Journal every morning. I get a digital copy of it. So quite often I'm reading today's news in the evening before. I watch the CBS News and I try to basically read what's happening and what's important. My investment strategy is different. I'm a long-term investor. I believe that the stock market is driven by change. I have an advantage. I've been around for 77 years. I recognize that in my overall lifespan, the most important change that happened in 1945, and that was when the Allies met in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, and said this can never happen again. And they were referring to World War II. And as a result, the United States became a superpower. We became the breadbasket and the manufacturing hub of the world. And that set the pace for the stock market that we experience today. Now, we've screwed it up along the way. We actually have given away the manufacturing and in some cases, even the breadbasket, so that my tennis shoes don't cost me as much, so that I can have 7 flat screen TVs in my home. And we have given away the manufacturing, and now we're dealing with it. The second most, or actually the World War II was replaced by as the most important event in my life in March of 2020 with the coronavirus, because unlike the World War II did not affect everybody in the world, but the coronavirus did. And again, there was a meeting of the Allies, and they said, this can never happen again. And we have now moved into a period of change. And there has been a demand that we correct our healthcare system. And I am of the belief that we're moving from healthcare to health cure, and through genome sequencing and genome editing. If I live long enough, they'll take cancer out of my body. Do I know cancer's in my body? Yeah. My mother died of cancer when I was 8 years old. My daughter died of cancer when her son was 8 years old in 2014. So cancer's in my body. My father died of cancer. So I'm very interested in finding how to take cancer out of the body. Now, what YouTube has given me is a channel to spread my beliefs and my interests. And I think what is really surprising, I have an advantage. You don't remember black and white TV in 1952. You don't
That is
remember
true.
it. I do. And that's where YouTube is today. We are looking at 1952 black and white TV. And what YouTube is offering me as an investor and as a channel on investing is the opportunity to take not just my knowledge and my experience, but to reach out and grab 158,000 people and saying, help me figure out what the next big change is and
Hmm.
how I can invest in it. I don't give a damn what happens on the stock market today. I'm interested in what's going to happen in 2 years. I'm interested in when they can stick a needle in my arm and take cancer out of my body, when they can stick a needle into my granddaughter's egg and my future grandson's sperm and take cancer out of my bloodline, that it'll never be there again. And they'll do the same thing with heart disease. They'll do the same thing with Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. That's change. I experienced this same thing in 1988 when I was driving in my car and someone started talking about the World Wide Web. Do you remember
Mm.
that terminology?
I
How
sure
old
do.
were you in 1989?
I was -3.
Okay.
I was born in '92.
Just think, what if in 1989 I had been able to go to a device and ask that device, who's leading this charge in this World Wide Web? Maybe the name Bill Gates would come up. Maybe the name Steve Jobs would come up. And I could learn about them. The reality is there was no news about them until about 1992 when the first article on Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak appeared. If I had had the ability to find that article in 1989 and invest $10,000 in Apple, I'd have 13 million today.
So
Okay.
what do you think is a similar company today that could give that sort of return in 20 years, let's say?
Do you know who Jennifer Doudna is?
I'm not familiar, no.
Do you know who Emmanuel Carpentier is?
Uh, I do not know, but I think I
Okay.
see where you're going with this.
Two years ago, they both shared the Nobel Peace Prize for science. They are the founders of CRISPR.
Ah,
They own and are involved in CRISPR, Editus, Mammoth, a number of about 5 companies that are leading the charge on genome editing. There is a company by the name of Illumina. They control 92% of genome sequencing. Do you know what genome sequencing is?
yeah, so that's when they basically scan your entire genetic sequence and they're able to have all the genes laid out before you. And you can analyze them to see which genes are activated, which genes aren't, and kind of how they affect your health and in your body.
Okay. So if and when the world wakes up and says and is informed, you can go to your doctor. He can sequence your genome and look into your genome sequence and determine if you have a propensity for Alzheimer's, for heart disease, for cancer, for anything. And then you can go to a company by the name of Editus, CRISPR, Mammoth, and they can have a therapy to take that out of your arm. That's Bill Gates and Steve Jobs.
For
Okay.
sure. Huh.
Now, so if I'm a 22-year-old and I just graduated from college, and I will invest $6,000 in a mix of those inside a Roth IRA, I predict you will have a aggregated growth of 33% by the time you hit 65, and you'll have $16 billion of tax-free money.
Oh my God.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God. That is what is available to any 22-year-old in the world today. All they have to do is figure out who the next Steve Jobs and the next Bill Gates are. That's all. It's that simple.
So what makes you so optimistic about this technology? Obviously, the potential to sequence a genome and sort of understand your health on a molecular level, essentially, is super exciting. It's very important. But I guess, like, for anybody who is skeptical, perhaps, what would you say to them as far as, like, something that currently exists that shows great potential already? So obviously, we're able to sequence genomes, and that is useful in and of itself, but is there a technology or a treatment right now that people can get or that exists at all that is futuristic, shall we say?
Oh, I don't think you have to go to futuristic. They have already taken sickle cell anemia out of a lady's body in Mississippi. They have already taken liver disease out of a individual in Australia. They have already shot a needle in an infant's eye and taken that genome disease out of their body, and within a matter of hours that child could see. No, this is real world. The only issue is it's too far. The only issue is you don't know about it. And 95% of the people in the world don't know about it yet. Much as in 1989, nobody really understood what the internet was and what it could bring. It was there. Bill Gates tried to sell it to IBM, and IBM said, no, you got it all wrong. And Bill had to go out. What's that?
It's all about mainframes, said IBM. You need a computer the size of a house. That's what people really want.
Yes, that's what people really want. They want to build an addition to their house. So is it so difficult to look back and see that all we're doing is repeating ourselves? And why is that? Because we deal in a stock market that reacts on a quarterly basis. The success and failure of Tesla for the next 90 days will happen this evening when they come out with their earnings, because nobody cares anything about beyond 90 days, because Wall Street is paid on a 90-day cycle. So Wall Street speaks to a 90-day cycle. Nobody has the time to look 5 years in advance, other than me and Kathy Woods.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to, I guess, how the entire market operates, right? It seems like you talked about how since World War II, we've kind of killed the goose that laid the golden egg, so to speak, in that, we shipped manufacturing overseas. And yes, it did allow us to buy cheaper sneakers and cheaper televisions, but all that really did was maximize profit in the short term. And so the fact that, we only look 90 days into the future for success or for indicators of success seems a little short-sighted. But you've said yourself, your entire investment strategy is all about long-term. So do you feel like the advantage of long-term investing is that it's easier to see societal trends as they kind of move slowly over time, whereas there's so much variance in short-term phenomena that it's harder to really predict what's going to happen in 90 days versus 30 years, which seems counterintuitive, but I think When you use examples like Microsoft before the 90s or things like that, it kind of becomes more clear what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. And you don't have to look that far in advance. I mean, Tesla is a fine example. How long did we know that global warming existed and we had to get rid of internal combustion automobiles? And yet Tesla is the only one who stepped forward. And in fact, we sat on our hands here in the United States, and Xi Jinping offered Elon Musk the opportunity to build a factory in China and gave him the land, provided him the labor, and then stole his technology. And we sit back and say, holy crap, how did that happen? Whereas General Motors has yet to get on the bandwagon. Ford, they are so far behind. So why are we surprised that when I can say to you, within 5 years, you can take cancer out of your body, that our system says, no, that ain't going to happen. Then we have a dilemma that we just can't get anything done in Washington. So here in the United States, it's all got to be done in the capitalist world. We have the people at Editus and CRISPR and are not getting government support, but they are in China. And China has come out and said, we will surpass you in genome sequencing and genome editing. So to ask your question, how do you overcome the disbelief that this can happen? You read books like Lifespan. This was my first introduction to it. Harvard professor David A. Sinclair explained to me that what ages me is the depletion of my cells, and that there is no reason, if they take disease out of my body, that I can't live to be 150 years old. Now, you don't all remember when I bought my first car in 1962, which was a 1959 Ford. It had a life expectancy of 30,000 miles.
Wow, that's not much.
No, it's not much. But we didn't move around near as much. What is the life expectancy of my BMW now? 200,000 miles. Why? Because first of all, we have all kinds of alerts on my car that tell me if anything is going wrong, get it into the shop. The other thing is my BMW is within a system that compares my BMW to millions of other BMWs in the nation. And if they start having a problem, I'm notified to get in. Why can't we do that with the human body? I wear a Fitbit. Every element of my physical being is tracked on this watch, and Google gathers it on a daily basis, not only from me, but from millions of other people. If that data is brought together and compared, can they predict a call in for Kerry's body? Yeah. If at the same time they can create replacement parts, can Kerry live to be 150? Hell yes. Like my BMW can live for 200,000 miles. It's simple. You merely take the data, analyze it, compare it, and come to a conclusion. Now you introduce artificial intelligence and then machine learning, and every day I live longer, I could live another year. Now we got some other issues.
Yeah, I'm sure that would open up a whole other can of worms, but it sure would be interesting, wouldn't it? So one thing
it's there. It just needs to be put together. Right. I just watched an interview with a young lady about quantum computing. That's a whole nother realm. We put that into the scope of monitoring Kerry's body, and we can find out all kinds of other things. The other issue I think that is exciting to me is that I know this because I read. I know this because I study. But what I've realized through my YouTube channel is it doesn't have to be all about me. So I have a Discord. I have 18,000 people who come to that Discord. Okay.
Wow.
And I ask them, what did you learn today? What more do you know at this point than I do? How can you expand upon my knowledge? And now I've got what Kathy Woods has got. I've got what J.P. Morgan's got. I've got a research staff. Now, what I've done beyond that is say, okay, Kerry, you've made some good money on this for the last 2 years. Why don't you invest something in your business? And so I made about $350,000 last year off my YouTube channel. I have committed to spend $72,000 of that on buying other people's research.
So when you say you made that amount of money off your YouTube channel, could you break down like your revenue sources and kind of how you did it?
Yeah, there's about 6 of them right now. The one that gets you going is Google's AdWords. I make about 2 cents a click. Okay, so that got very high in when everybody was quarantined at home. That would generate me in 1 month $25,000. Okay,
Wow. Oh my
that
God.
has now dropped down though to about $7,000. I have a Discord where I share my portfolio. I make about $20,000 a month off of that. People pay a $10 fee a month to see my portfolio. I have solicited sponsors. Okay, that I say, look, I use your tools in my research, and I will share the names of your tools on my channel to then drive people that they want the same thing. Seeking Alpha is a good example. If you're familiar with Seeking Alpha, they give me on a daily basis other people's opinions of stocks. And so I use that as a source for research for myself. I involve myself in one of the few. It's called I Trust Capital. It's a cryptocurrency way of me to invest in an IRA. So all my cryptocurrency is held in a Roth IRA. So if it explodes to $100,000, it's all tax-free money to my grandkids who are going to inherit it. So I get sponsorships. I have affiliate programs. I have people who pay me to rent my email list. So what I'm telling you is YouTube and AdWords is just the beginning. There are, to the industrious YouTuber, there are multiple channels. So as I was saying, I made about $350,000 last year off of it. I have committed that I will now go out and buy some of the gurus in the markets who have been in the market longer and more active than me, and I'll buy their information. I'll pay $4,000, $2,000, $5,000 a year. I'll bring that in-house, and I've hired an individual to go through it and give me the best of the best ideas. So then I do videos for members only within my Discord to gain access to the information I've paid for. Because what I've realized is Kerry can only take this so far. But Kerry now has access to 150,000 subscribers and access by spending money to people who are smarter than me. And we now can cumulatively gather that information, share it, and make better investment decisions. I don't need JP Morgan to do that for me anymore. I have my own team. I have built my own organization. And that's what I was telling you, where YouTube is today is comparable to 1952 black and white TV. YouTube is going to become a community organization where we as individuals join together to lead better lives.
Mm-hmm. I remember you talking on your channel about this concept of a YouTube investment tribe, and it sounds like that's kind of what you're talking about right now. So I am curious, like you said at least when you buy somebody else's information, you've hired somebody to go through that information and pick out all the best investments and whatnot. But I guess so how do you know, like with all these people in your Discord and all this information that's available, how do you pick through and decide what is good and what's not? I'm sure there's some things that are very obvious, like, oh, this person invested $100 and now they have $100,000. But I guess that seems like a lot of information to comb through. So what is your advice on finding what information is actually worth listening to?
I think that, Grant, the whole idea of it is putting pieces together, connecting the dots. I got from my source, my analyst, a piece of information from a guru on the stock Open Door. Are you familiar with Open Door?
I'm not, no.
They're an iBuyer. In the real estate market, they're an iBuyer. They come to Kerry, who's a senior citizen, who is probably wanting to downsize, and they say, we'll buy your house for cash. You don't need to get involved with a real estate agent. We'll buy it for cash. And then we'll come up and do any repairs and sell it for a profit. This Zillow's in it, Open Door, and a few others. They're growing companies. Okay. At the same time, I saw a 60 Minutes program 2 months ago that explained to me that the people in Atlanta and Nashville are having difficulties, millennials, buying houses because corporate America is coming in and bidding the prices out and buying them out. So I researched that and I discovered that Wall Street, in anticipation of the foreclosures as a result of the coronavirus, has gathered huge number of investors who were going to come in at the foreclosures and buy up these houses. But that didn't happen, unlike it did happen in 2007 and 2008. See how I'm connecting dots? Okay, but now this money's sitting there, and then right down the street from me, 3 miles down the street, I see them clearing a 40-acre piece of land. And I go and investigate it, and it's a Wall Street company coming in, building 700 to 1,200 homes that are all going to be rentals. They are not going to allow the millennials to buy them. They are not going to allow the baby boomers to downsize into them. They're going to buy them. Why are they doing that? They got the money. They were expecting to get it from foreclosures. The bond rates are so damn low, they can't sell bonds. But if you can take a home that is generating rent every month, and then you have a clause that you can increase the rent as prices go up, you now have a phenomenal investment. Why the hell would you anymore take your money and put it in J.B. Horton and build a home, sell it, make a profit once, and then have to do it all over again? Where now you can have a constant ongoing stream of income that is that you can depreciate on your books while it's increasing in value in reality, and it's generating income. So I know that's happening, and I look at Open Door, who's out buying homes as fast as they can from baby boomers who want to downsize. And I say, Wall Street's going to buy every home they rehab for the next 5 years. So I need to invest in Open Door. What's its price? It has been as high as 40. Today it's at $8.52.
Wow, that's quite a drop.
Yeah, it's quite a drop. And I ask myself, why did it drop? Because in November, Zillow, you know who Zillow is? Who was the biggest iBuyer in the country, closed it down because they didn't know how to run it. Spencer Roscoff had run that company for years, and they were selling leads to realtors. And then the bigger shareholder, Richard Barton, said, Spencer, go away. I'm going into a new business called iBuying. Didn't know the hell what he was doing. And they lost money quarter after quarter after quarter. And then in November of 2021, they threw their hands up and said, we're out. That killed every iBuyer stock. And Open Door went from 20 to $5 a share. All I'm doing is connecting the dots. What's changed since November? Wall Street has decided they want to take away the American dream, or at least change it. The American dream used to be to own a house. But if Wall Street's coming out and bidding the price of the house up so that the millennials can't buy them, but will rent them to them, that's change. That's change, just like the World Wide Web, genome sequencing. We now have a change in real estate, a massive change. And I'm the only guy who's figured it out.
Mm-hmm. And especially, it seems like investing, if it's harder and harder to invest in a home, I feel like just the concept of investing is kind of getting more abstract. Like when you buy a house, it's kind of an inherent human need, right? It's like a shelter, and it's easy to understand how to invest well, or at least easier how to understand to invest in a house versus like stocks. I think that's less abstract for most people.
I think you're right.
But the fact that is kind of, if not going away, it's getting harder and harder to buy. That does indicate a major change in the landscape of the United States, in that if you are going to be a successful investor, it may not be good enough to just buy a house in the right neighborhood. You may have to start following market trends, or at least following people like you who follow the trends and sort of understand what's going on and break it down.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. The world is getting much more complicated to have thought, and I guess it's all about, as I said, connecting the dots and recognizing the consequences of what's happening in the world. And I keep going back to, if you can just absorb that the most important event that happened in your life happened last March in 2020, and it will change everything going forward. And if you can grasp that and then sit down, I like to say, I watch Lester Holt, and I am very conscious about what is his lead story. Now, his lead story, I can remember when it was the Korean goofball setting off rockets. Okay. Mm-hmm. When's the last time you heard about that? He's a non-player. Okay. Then it became the coronavirus, and every day we determined how many people died today. Do you remember? Do you know what that reminded me of? Do you know who William Westmoreland is? William
No, I don't.
Westmoreland was the general who took us into Vietnam. Every night we were told how many Americans died and how many Vietnamese died. Every night. And didn't we do the same thing with the coronavirus? How many people got the virus? How many people died from it? That was the lead story. What's the lead story today? How many people did Vladimir Putin kill today? We're back to Vietnam. It all just repeats itself. How is this going to end? How did Vietnam end? We got our butts kicked and they threw us out. How did we get our butts kicked? The Viet Cong. Who was the Viet Cong? The Viet Cong were the local citizens, not the North Vietnamese. We handled them. It was the Viet Cong who resented us coming into their country and destroying them. The same thing is happening in Ukraine. The same thing. Now, the thing that is going to, that I hope doesn't happen, is the Ukrainians become terrorists. And they blow up the Kremlin.
Yeah, I mean, war can produce some really catastrophic and I'd say unpredictable consequences. So I suppose something like that is always possible. So what do you think these current times are going to lead to? You've compared them to Vietnam. So in what ways did Vietnam affect the market, and how are those same concepts going to affect the market today?
I don't know if I can come to a parallel of Vietnam. Vietnam basically ended because of the draft. I was subject to the draft. I was a college student. I was in college, and then I was exempt from the draft until they said we need more people, and you can't draft intelligent people without creating a backlash. We the young college students brought the end to the Vietnam War. I can't draw a parallel to that. What I do draw a parallel to is the fact that Vladimir Putin is nothing new. We as American citizens have yet to recognize there is a direct parallel. We invaded a country and killed people. Our news is going crazy about we're killing innocent citizens. Well, what the hell do you think we did in Vietnam? And more current, what the hell do you think we did in Iraq? We killed 450,000 Iraqians. Is George Bush in prison? No, he's down in Florida painting. We're rewarding him. All he's got to do is come on and say, "Hey, I want somebody to come down and see my paintings." No, the man's a criminal. This is not the direction you wanted to go, but this is connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true, and I think it's fascinating how you're able to do this and look at these large-scale historical trends. Yeah.
Do you know how when George Bush was born? 1946. He was one of the first baby boomers. Do you know when Vladimir Putin was born? 1946. He's a baby boomer. The baby boomers are destroying this world because they are greedy sociopaths.
Wow.
If you'll connect the dots, you'll figure out what's happened. Do you know what our national debt was in 2000?
Wasn't it zero? I thought Bill Clinton paid off the debt.
No, it was $4 trillion. No.
Well, that's almost zero, all things considered, compared to today.
But think about that. It took 200 years to get to $4 trillion. Do you know what it is today?
it's like 40 trillion, or I don't know if it's
30.
that high, but
30
30.
trillion.
Okay.
30 trillion. That's the baby boomers. They in 1960, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard in order to fund the Vietnam War, and from that point on, anytime we had a problem, we printed money. We printed
Whoa.
$9 trillion in 2020. Money is like rain. It falls through the sky, it lands somewhere. You use it. If you need it for shelter and food, you use it. It then goes to the grocer. He uses it. He uses it. He uses it until it falls in someone's pocket who doesn't need it. And what does he do with it? He invests it in Apple, Google, Microsoft, and Facebook. And that's just connect the dots. So what is going to happen to the stock market? You tell me when they're going to turn the printing press off. When they turn the printing presses off, the market will stall.
Mm-hmm.
If they keep printing it, we'll just keep buying stocks. And the price of everything will go up. We talk about inflation. Why is inflation? Because you printed $9 trillion. And so you've got more money than you've got goods. And then you can't get the goods because you can't get them out of China. Why do you have to get them from China? Because you gave that away over the last 30 years. It's not that difficult. Just connect
It's
the
like
dots.
right. And I think when you look at things in the long term, like you are, these trends can seem very obvious, like the issue with outsourcing all these jobs and all this manufacturing, and the impact of all these wars. And I think a lot of what happens on the world stage is individuals or groups or dictators sort of just acting for their own benefit. And that sort of, they don't necessarily think things through, or maybe that's just, it does benefit them in some way, but of course the effect on the rest of the world is very negative. So clearly, like, you have a lot of strong, interesting opinions on the world and how things work.
I want to share something. You made the point that they do things for their own self-interest. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
The player on page 186, he talks about Ukraine. And he tells you on page 186, and this was written in 2014, that Russia would invade Ukraine in order to get their manufacturing and their food growth capabilities. Why? Because the average age of a male, death of a male in Russia is 58 years old. Because once you get out of Moscow and St. Petersburg, there is rampant drug addiction, there is rampant age, and people die. And and Russia is decaying from the inside out. The next thing Vladimir will do will be, according to Peter Zion, is he has to invade the Baltic countries, because those are healthy people and they are strong workforce. Russia is dying from the inside out. Peter Zion told me this years ago. It's all about understanding the world you live in and the direction it's going in, and don't get caught up in the day-to-day activities. And that's what my YouTube channel is all about.
yeah. No, it's really fascinating to hear you talk about this, and I think it's helpful to get this sort of insight on world events, because even me saying Vladimir Putin is just acting on his own self-interest, and clearly he's acting on the interest of Russia, but even then it's more complicated than that, because as you said, Russia is decaying from the inside out, and even just learning that, it kind of I don't know, it makes this situation make more sense. It makes it more palpable. And it is nice to have clear information on why this is happening beyond the kind of normal thing that you hear, which is just he's a dictator, he's just trying to flex his power, which is very simplistic and I would say not helpful. And maybe there's some truth to that, but it's it's not really reflecting reality, and it seems more
No,
like propaganda, and you can't really predict what is going to happen with that sort of overly simplistic narrative.
I think that's true. And then I just bring you back. Reflect on what we do, what we did in Iraq. And do you know why we went to war in Iraq?
I mean, there were supposedly weapons of mass destruction that we were
Exactly.
looking
Did they
for.
ever appear?
No, they
No,
didn't.
no, they didn't. We went there to get their oil. We didn't get it. Then we moved our troops to Afghanistan, and we spent 15 years there, flying drones over and killing people. So let's don't be so harsh until we understand people's motives.
Mm. Wise words.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when you tell yourself stories about we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, it kind of like, I mean, not only is it like a silly, bad old movie, but it's just, I don't know, it makes the world scarier somehow. I think if you're able to accept or at least acknowledge the darkness within yourself or your culture or the country you live in, at least for me, it makes all of these events easier to understand and to integrate into my life without kind of worrying about it. It's I don't know, it somehow it makes more sense to me than
Okay.
just there's these bad guys out there and they're gonna do bad things and maybe we can stop them with our white hats, and it's just, I don't know, it seems silly. It seems very silly.
Well, I think the other thing that I subscribe very heavily to, I will worry about things that I can do something about. I can't do anything about Russia and Vladimir Putin, but I can do something about the stock market. I can share my knowledge and my experience, and I can gather other people's knowledge and experience, and maybe I can make somebody's life better. My goal right now is to reach 22-year-olds and explain to them, if they will find the next Bill Gates and the next Steve Jobs and invest in a gift from the government, a Roth IRA, $6,000 a year, and you invest in companies like the Microsofts, what I say are the genome sequencing, the genome editing, the change in the real estate industry, you'll have over $1 billion of tax-free money when you hit on it. Actually, you pass $1 billion on your 59th birthday. Now, that's considering a 33% growth rate. Well, if you take Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook and average their growth rate through their history, it's 44%. I've backed it down 11 and said you can achieve 33. And every 22, and you say, where does a 22-year-old get $6,000? Go to your grandfather.
Good advice.
Go to your grandfather and say, Granddad, I need six. Now the key is you got to have $6,000 worth of earned income. So it might mean your grandfather has to put you on the payroll. I don't know. But it's within grasp. And Grant, if I can do that, if I can go to my grave knowing that I changed the lives of young people, I wish somebody had told me this when I was 22 years old. But they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. And I have invested over the years, and it can be difficult to know what to invest in. So you talking is very inspiring to me because, I have some savings and I have been wanting to do something with it, especially as inflation is getting more inflated. It seems wise to invest in some companies for the long term to make sure that my dollars aren't turning into 50-cent coins.
Another book you should read. The Future is Faster Than You Think. This is a window into the future. It tells you what's going to happen. And if the other thing I really strongly believe in is the most people, the last nonfiction book they read was the last required reading in their highest level of education. They stop learning. They stop, and it's crazy. And people believe, well, you've got to spend a lot of money to learn. You've got to go to the best university. Warren Buffett auctions off for charity a 3-hour lunch with himself every year. It has been paid as high as, I think it's $33 million for it.
Oh my God.
Warren has written 10 books. You can buy all 10 of those books for less than $300.
Certainly for less than 33 million.
Yeah, this was some Bitcoin guy who paid him that. But just learn. Just pick your niche. I lost my daughter to cancer. I committed the day after she died that I would become instrumental in finding a cure for cancer. I live in Birmingham, Alabama. I went over to Atlanta to the headquarters of the American Cancer Society. And I said, I want to help you find a cure for cancer. They enlisted me, and then I went and found their tax return. Part of that was because one of my fraternity brothers had been the CEO. And I discovered that the last year of his employment, he made $2 million, $2.4 million. I thought that's awful high for a charity. I then went and found that year they had raised $86 million. 55% of it went to salaries and benefits of the employees. 35% of it went to advertising and promotion so that they could raise another 86. We're down to 15%. They spent less than 5% on curing to any educational institution to find a cure for cancer. I said, I got to do it on my own. I got to find a way. And that took me to YouTube. And I got to spread the word.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really admire that you have a strong goal here. And just, I mean, talking to you for these last 50 minutes, like you really know your stuff. It seems like you're well read and have a lot of experience. And you there's the time I said Putin was acting in his own self-interest, and you were like, no, let me show you the book. You've got it all down, and I admire that. And I'm starting to see how you do have a thriving community. You said you had 18,000 people in your Discord. Is that correct?
Yeah, not some of them are just passersby.
Sure.
I would say we have about probably about 3,000 that are active regularly. Mm-hmm. The other thing mm-hmm. This is an interesting thing. Every Friday I do a Zoom call, and I invite the members of the Discord, and we have about 60 that show up. And then because they're from all over the world, we have about 700-800 of them that then come and watch it and communicate back to me. And what I've learned that has really shocked me is many of these people, their knowledge of the stock market is so small. They don't know what a stop loss order is. They don't know what a limited order is. I remember when someone asked me, well, what is margin? And my answer was a word you need to take out of your vocabulary. You do not want to use margins on stop. And so, and again, I'm a CFP, a CHFC, a CLU, and I learned that I know so much that I need to share with people. A young man on Twitter wrote, my wife and I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we worry what would happen if we don't wake up? What would happen to our children if we don't wake up tomorrow morning? And I wrote to him and I said, for about $1,000, you and your wife can buy a single premium life insurance policy and make someone the beneficiary to take care of your children, and then maybe you can sleep at night. And I thought, I know that. I need to share that. Along the same lines, my daughter was the primary breadwinner in our house. She got cancer in I believe it was 2002. She had injured her foot running cross country in high school, and she walked around. It was extremely painful. We took her to doctors for 10 years, and then in roughly, I think it was 2010, 2004, a doctor said, have you had an MRI? And I said, what's an MRI? They took the MRI and they said, you have a soft tissue sarcoma in your foot, and it's about to explode through your foot, and it's about to spread cancer throughout your body. You need to have your leg amputated. A week later, they amputated her at mid-calf. And this is a young lady who came to me when she was 13 years old and said, take me to the courthouse. I need to change my name. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, I'm a reincarnation of your mother. I died when I was 27 years old. I'm now back, and I want my name back. I took her to the courthouse. She changed her name. She died when she was 40 years old of cancer, the same as my mother. When my mother died, I was 8 years old. When she died, her son was 8 years old. So the world works in strange ways. I found myself in a position that I hated the world. God and I separated paths. You did this to me when I was 8 years old, and you've done it to me again. And I needed love. So I started a YouTube channel. And now I have people who love me, who thank me for what I do. That's what Kerry Grinkmeyer is all about. This is what keeps me going. Otherwise, no. My wife and I would have gotten a divorce because cancer's in my body. She got it from me. Anything else you want to know, Fred?
I mean, you're full of really interesting stories and insight. No, you're great. You're fantastic. I'm processing all this, and I think like your story in particular is, I mean, it's really sad, but it's also really beautiful. I think it's wonderful that you have worked on taking all this pain that you felt and these horrible things that you've had to deal with, and you have, instead of like just getting bitter about it and kind of resigning to it. I mean, you've said you've made it your mission to help young people and to make sure that they're not just financially stable, but financially thriving and essentially becoming a father figure in that right. And I think that is profound. And, most people, when they get into YouTube, they just want to be famous and they don't really think about their real motivations. And I think you're in a unique position where you have very real, very solid, profound motivations. And I think your community reflects that. And as somebody who interviews a lot of YouTubers and who is friends with a lot of YouTubers, I mean, a community of your size and also just the income you're able to make off this is it's unique. It really is. I'm not just saying nice things to you. I like this is all true, and I respect that you have been able to turn this pain into something really helpful for people, and also that is helpful for yourself as well.
Yeah.
And it's it's unique. Again, there's a lot of people out there who they're just trying to get in front of the camera and they're trying to tell the world to look at them. And that's sort of the gist of their motivation. And I respect where you're coming from, and I'm sorry for your losses. And I'm also impressed with how you have dealt with them. And I think, maybe for those listening, this is a reason for whatever you're going through, however negative it is, you can use that to and turn it into something beautiful and something helpful. And yeah, those are words to live by for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could go on, but
well, no. Thanks for sharing your perspective. I feel like as I was watching your videos, I kind of got the beginning of what makes you tick, and then over the course of this hour, your perspective has opened up to me, and I think it's great. And
I hope your audience is younger. One of my regrets is my audience is basically 55 years in age and over. But again, I feel I can make a difference in people's lives. And so I want to reach out. That is my goal at this point, to reach that younger audience. I'm working with a couple of high school teachers who teach economics. I don't know if you know that this April, I believe, is Financial Literacy Month. They didn't do a good job of promoting that. But,
I didn't hear about it.
Yeah. But my hope is that my phone rings someday and says, "Help us help younger people." Are you familiar with Mr. Beast?
Yes, I sure am.
He's got about 9 million subscribers. I have emailed him every day for the last 2 weeks. On his Twitter account, if you go to his Twitter channel, his statement is, "I hope that I can make a difference in people's lives before I die." And I'm writing Mr. Beast and say, "Come join with me. Let me fulfill your wish. Let me share my knowledge with your audience."
And so you think if you're able to talk to Mr. Beast and share your knowledge with him, that lots of young people will be able to invest and be powerful players in the economy? That's your goal?
What my hope is, he has a unique way of grabbing people. I don't know his business model, but I read he made $52 million last year. I suspect it's from sponsors, and he gives a lot of that money away. Okay, he has the ear, such as I have a 16-year-old grandson, and I ask him, "Do you know who Mr. Beast?" "Oh, of course I do. I watch him all the time." I would love to get into my grandson's ear. I would love to sit down with Mr. Beast and say, how can we work together? How can you integrate me into your channel just so that I can give them a blip and put some sugar on their tongue and make them say, I want more. I want more. Give me some more. Let me see that Excel spreadsheet that you put together that shows if at 18 I invest this, that I'll have $1 billion when I'm 59 years old. Share that with me. That's what I want to do. That's
awesome. That is so awesome.
So if you can help me do that, Grant.
I'll write him an email right now.
There you go. I am sure he has a staff and it goes by that. And it's interesting. You never know what you might get. I wrote once Jeff Bezos and suggested that he find a seat for me on his board of directors, and I got a response from his secretary. I was a real estate agent with Keller Williams, and I wrote Gary Keller and said, "Here are some ideas," and he wrote me back and said, "When can you make it to Austin, Texas, to talk?" So you never know. All you got to do is ask, and it's so easy to ask with email.
So what happened next with that story?
With Gary Keller? We basically talked about, I was very interested in Zillow at that time. I saw Zillow in their means of where Richard Barton was going. He wanted to do the loans, do everything relative to real estate. And I thought that Amazon would buy Zillow so that they could have a seat at the closing table, so they could put an Alexa in every house that was sold in the United States. If you could do that, the data that you would collect would be phenomenal. Shortly after that, Zillow or Amazon went into a relationship with a different real estate company, and then that all fell apart. But no, I got to know Gary, and we exchanged some ideas, and I exposed him to using YouTube to sell luxury homes, and then we went in our own directions. So. But you can ask anybody, and you might be surprised, who says, okay, let's talk.
Yeah, the fact it got that far is incredible. I mean,
no, it's not. No, it's not. Everybody wants help. You see, that's something that is a misconception. Much as I said to you, all I really want is love. That's kind of a quote from John Lennon. That's all. That's all any of us want. Right. That's all we want. Just to love me, to help me, share with me. And that's a beautiful thing about what's happening in our world today. We are moving to a sharing economy. I like to say on my channel, two of the dumbest things I've done in my life sit in my garage. One is a Porsche and one is a BMW. They're $200,000 worth of depreciating assets that I have to fund at the rate of about $15,000 a year. And I use them less than 5% of my life. So why don't I just pick up my phone and have a Porsche show up at my front door? And that's where the world is going. We're going to a sharing economy. I live in a 5,000 square foot house. It's just me and my wife. It makes no sense whatsoever. We're going to go to a sharing economy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Which I think it speaks to the importance of being able to invest, right? If if people are going to own less, then they should be able to invest in companies and make profit off of the companies that do own these things. And I guess, at least for me, I get kind of scared when somebody talks about the sharing economy because as a millennial, I do want to buy a house. I want to own assets. I don't necessarily want to always be renting everything. Do you see any negatives for that side of things, or do you worry about that?
well, I think we as Americans, if you travel the world, we are one of the few countries in the world where people actually own their homes. You go through the Baltic countries and in Italy, most people live in apartments or something of condos. You go to Asia, China. Now China has adopted ownership, but ownership is an apartment. We are one of the few countries that own land and own. I don't know. I guess if when I say sharing economy, my wife and I love to spend our winters at the beach, but we don't want to be there in the summer when everybody else wants to be there. I would love to have some sort of an arrangement where I had a home on the beach for 4 months, another home in the mountains for 4 months, and another home here in Birmingham for 4 months. And if I could find a way to do it in a sharing relationship, that's kind of like timeshares, but that didn't work out all that well. But yeah, I think the you as a millennial are much more mobile than I am. You're much more social than I am, and I just kind of think the fascination with McMansions. I don't see that in your horizon. Uh,
No, my generation does not like McMansions.
yeah, but
They're a
and
weird
again,
hell.
that's part of my psychopathic generation of the baby boomers. Mine is bigger than yours,
Uh-huh.
and okay, yours is bigger. Okay, well, I'm going to build a fence around my community, and I'm going to have my own restaurant and my own tennis court, my own swimming pool, and I'm going to put a gate around it so you people can't come in. We have just destroyed this. We're so me, me, me. Just yesterday, I was watching Squawk Box, and they were talking about the airlines taking down the mandate of masks. And Andrew Ross Sorkin said, I don't know if that's really good. He said, what if you have to go to you have some disease or some illness and you got to fly to Austin, Texas to get it taken care of? Would you wear a mask? And Joe Kernan said, no, that's not my problem. I said, and Ross said, you mean if you had some sickness and you got on an airplane, you wouldn't wear a mask? He said, no, I will never wear a mask again in my life. And I went on Twitter and I said, Joe Kernan just shared with me what a selfish individual he has. And he's a baby boomer, and it's time for him to retire. Get out of there. That is
Amen.
not he's an old man. He's 67 years old. He's 10 years younger than me. But we need to get rid of those people, those baby boomers. Look at our Congress. They're a bunch of psychopaths.
I'm not going to deny that.
We just need we that's what I said to my wife. I live in a red state. We have no Democrats running for governor. And she says, "What's your criteria for running for governor?" I said, "They got to be less. They got to be less than. They can't be a baby boomer. They got to be at least a Generation Xer. Problem is, we don't have any."
So you're pretty hard on the baby boomers, clearly, and I there was a meme going around called "OK Boomer." I don't know if you
Yeah,
heard about it.
yeah,
So yeah, you're in a way you're kind of on the same wavelength as that right now.
yeah.
But I guess to play devil's advocate here, do you think that selfishness is really unique to the baby boomer generation? Like, what makes you think that Gen X or millennials or Gen Z are less selfish, or we aren't buying as many houses? There seems to be less acquisition of wealth just for the sake of it. But do you think that's because of who we are, or is that just because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in?
Do you remember? Did you play in any intermediate or any sports when you were a kid?
I did, yeah. In high school, I did soccer, cross country, and track.
Okay. Um, us baby boomers used to laugh at you people and say everybody gets a medal. Everybody gets a medal, and
Hmm.
that teaches them no competition. Um, Now I understand it. It was a team sport. We played as a team. Um, it isn't important who finishes first, second, and third. It's important is to participate and to support the team. So yeah, I think there is a huge difference. I run a race to win because I'm actually 16 months out of the baby boomer generation, but I consider myself a baby boomer. I am an extremely competitive person. I will run you over to win. That's not your generation. It's not your generation. I'll give you an example. My granddaughters go to SCAD, Savannah School of Art and Design. My granddaughter graduated valedictorian in social media marketing. I've offered her a job. She said, I can't work for you, Grandpa. We think very differently. I was offended, but she's right. She's right. I I would be I'm very difficult to work. I'm demanding. I'm competitive, but
But
I want
is
to
that a
share.
bad thing?
I think it's. You ask me the question: is it different generational? Yeah, I think it is. I don't think it's a bad thing. Have you read about what a jerk Jeff Bezos is to work for? He's so
Uh huh. Yes.
demanding. He's a baby boomer.
Oh, is he? I always thought he was Gen X, but I don't know.
I
Maybe he
don't
just
think
looks
so.
ageless.
I
So.
don't know. He would have been 46 to 64, but
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, let's see here. I'm
Steve
curious how old this
Jobs
guy
was
is.
very difficult to work for,
Hmm.
very demanding people. Uh,
So Jeff Bezos was born January 12th of 1964. So
okay,
he,
so he is a boomer.
yeah, he sure is.
He just made
Well,
it.
if only he was born a few years
Oh yeah,
later,
a year
then
later. Yeah, but then we wouldn't have Amazon.
very true, very true. I would not be able to get 2-day deliveries on my bookshelves, which would
I
be a
can get them
disaster.
one day. We've got two distribution centers here. Change the world. Do you know that they doubled their employment since 2020? And
I
they,
mean, that doesn't surprise me because of how well they're doing during the pandemic with everything going online. So, I
yeah,
mean, that is crazy though. The double, especially for how big they already were. Oh
yeah,
my God.
yeah. And now they're being challenged by the unions,
Mm.
which is another. I'm not sure I understand that, but
Hmm.
anyway,
Well, yeah, it seems like the unions are, they're doing what unions do, and people are coming together, demanding higher pay, better benefits, and I think that will probably be a good thing, especially with Amazon becoming such a huge part of the workforce. They I don't think I don't think they'll ever have a monopoly per se, but I think when you are a huge player, then it does raise questions like, well, how much are you paying your employees? And you do kind of set the standard, and it is important to make sure that people are doing well off of the profits of Amazon, because if the wealth isn't distributed enough, then you could start seeing problems. The economy could get very top heavy. So I think unions bubbling up it already is, and I think unions bubbling up and starting to demand change is a good thing. Which especially with the labor shortage right now, I think this is a good time to be doing it.
Yeah.
Seems like they're going to have more pull right now. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't want to keep you too long. We're an hour and 20 minutes. This is our longest one yet. So
okay. So do you do a video broadcast, or is it's a podcast?
So we have video, but it's mostly I think most people just listen to it.
Okay.
But we're still kind of working on getting the video a bigger part of this.
Okay.
But it's one step at a time. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, and thanks for joining me today. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to me and share your knowledge. And I'm glad I enjoyed it as well.
Okay.
So why don't you tell people where they can find you, pitch whatever you want to pitch, and be shameless about it.
Okay. It's Best of Us Investors. And as I say, I have 3 goals. One is to help people make better investment decisions. Number 2, learn how to keep more of what you make, and that is by understanding your tax code. And then setting a goal for yourself. The federal government will allow each of us to pass on to our heirs $12,250,000. So let's do it. Let's accumulate that, make a goal, so that we leave the world a better place for those who follow us. And then let's find a cure for cancer. Okay? But you can find me at Best of Us Investors. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I don't keep those things in my head, but you can find me if you want. It's Kerry Grinkmeyer.
Great. Kerry Grinkmeyer, everybody. And thank you for watching. I will see you, whoever you are, in the next one. Bye, everybody.